Hi, and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to talk about the book Lightlark by Alex Astor and if it's actually really that bad as people make it out to be. I'll try to be as constructive as I possibly can. There will be some minor spoilers revealed because I want to illustrate my point. I will also read you like a little bit of passages as well, so you could have an idea on what the book is like and whether you perhaps want to read it yourself or not. I went into this book with an open mind. I knew that it got popular and it got published because of BookTok, where the author posted a slideshow of images, basically asking people if they would be interested in this concept. And then it came out. A lot of people hated it. They also were saying that she might be an industry plant because she already received a movie deal even before the book was published. And there were people just mass reviewing it 1 star, which I don't really agree with. So I've read the book and I will tell you exactly if it's really that bad as people make it out to be. Short answer, kinda. I hate to say this, but never in my life have I ever experienced that I would be brought to tears by a book because I wanted to DNF it so much. But I didn't because I wanted to read it for this video. And by the way, that was around like the 50% mark, so I already felt like I've invested a lot of time into the book, so I didn't DNF it. I have read the whole thing. If you haven't read it, let me just quickly introduce the book to you. So we follow our main character who is 18 years old and she is a ruler of one realm. Now, Lightlark is an island that appears once every 100 years to hold a trial for the rulers to compete in. Each one of those islands have different curses that were originally cast around like 500 years ago, and so they meet every 100 of years to try to break the curses and to decide who will die. And with the ruler dies an entire realm. So it's not just saying, oh, let's kill this one person. You're essentially, by killing them, you kill the entire realm with them. And up until this point, no one was ever killed. So right off the bat, this is presented as like this incredibly dangerous trial where no one was ever killed. So if somebody would tell me, hey, by the way, I want you to compete in this trial that was held at least 5 times already, but no one was ever killed. It's really dangerous though. I would be like, yeah, sure, I'll go. Like, I don't care. Like, there's no danger to me, you know, just the probability. But perhaps that's not a good approach. I don't know. So each realm has different powers and their rulers are the most powerful ones. They also don't age, so they're practically immortal until they would have a child. However, there is a catch. This is a minor spoiler. Our main character was born without powers, which could be so interesting because everyone around her is using magic, but she cannot use it. She's faking the magic in order to not appear weak. And it sounds very interesting. However, the execution of that is lackluster to say the least, because the fact that she's the only person who cannot use magic doesn't affect her at all. And it's explained to us that she trained for this her entire life and she is very good at fighting and whatnot, and therefore she doesn't really have a disadvantage, which doesn't make a lot of sense because no amount of physical power can compete against the magic, especially this kind of magic that exists in this world where there are no rules to it whatsoever. And I will get to that when I will talk about world building. The writing is inconsistent. It's really bad in the first 10% of the book. I would say it's absolutely awful. It's kind of mediocre around the 30-50%. And then it gets better towards the end. It's still filled with some questionable metaphors. But to illustrate how bad the writing is in the first part, I will just read you like a couple of sentences that stood out to me a lot. Lightlark was a shining, cliffy thing. The sun had fallen. It was just a yolky thing, halfway consumed by the horizon. Singing was a wildling thing, a temptress thing. And I think there's way more examples of these. And this all happens, by the way, these 3 sentences, this happens within 20 pages of the book. Okay, so yeah, I don't understand why no one fixed this, because this reads very juvenile. And listen, writing is hard. It is hard and it takes years and years to practice. And, you know, I'm 26, I think she's 27. We're almost the same age. And yes, she has a book published. I do not. But if I would write this, I don't think I could honestly pitch it to anyone. I would be so embarrassed, just like from these few sentences. And I'm getting more aggressive than I should have been, so let's move on. The world building is very ACOTAR-esque. Basically, you have different islands with different people, and all of them have different powers. The names of the races are Sunling, Moonling, Starling, Skyling, Wildling, and Darkling. Sorry, Nightshade. I'm pretty sure the author wanted to use Darkling, but it was too similar to Lee Bardugo's Darkling, so she couldn't do that. So Nightshade is the only one with a bit more creative name. And this, by the way, gets really ridiculous when they try to name all of them in one sentence. It's really great when you have just like Ling, 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 Ling. Ling does this, Ling does that. It's not great. And they're, of course, distinguished by their powers, also their curses, because each realm has a different kind of curse, which I'll talk about in a second. But those things are really invisible. The only way for you to distinguish between them is the color of their hair and the color of their clothes, which, like I said, feels very ACOTAR-esque. Other than that, they're just exactly the same. They have no unique culture, no unique traditions, customs, skin color, or at least it's not really talked about in the book, so I don't know about that. Nothing. There are parts in the book where the main character impersonates a different race, and all she does is to like steal some kind of colored clothing and colors her hair with a potion for a few hours. Our main character is a wildling, and they control the nature, the forest. And they have a curse that they have to eat a human heart at least once a month. Now keep in mind, most of the characters on the island are immortal, so they would need an insane supply of hearts to survive, basically. But this is not talked about, and it makes me think that it's not even well thought of, because it makes no sense. Like, this realm wouldn't have lasted 500 years. It just wouldn't. They would run out of people. So for example, there's another realm where the people die at the age of 25. So you would think that this realm perhaps could get hearts from them, but nothing happens of that sort. Or this realm perhaps could try to colonize other realms to get supplies from them. You know, perhaps there will be an awful human trafficking, whatever, to get these hearts. But that's not talked about. And by the way, it's not even specifically said if they can live on animal hearts. And there's a passage that says the wildling realm wouldn't have to kill their beloveds or live on hearts any longer if the curses wouldn't be present anymore. Which also proves my point that it makes absolutely no sense if they just can live on human hearts. Also, the magic system in this world has 0 rules. So you would have incredibly powerful rulers that can, for example, use fire, use healing magic, and there would be no limits to that. And on top of that, each ruler would have a secret ability that would come to reveal at the most convenient of times. And it worked like Deus Ex Machina, where the problem was solved by this hidden ability of a ruler, which essentially made it so boring because I knew that if the characters will get in some kind of danger, there will be a special ability revealed and they would be safe. So as a result of that, I didn't really fear for the characters and I couldn't care if they would just die. There's a strict hierarchy between the rulers. There is a king who is a sonling who has authority over all of the remaining rulers. But the way they talk to him doesn't illustrate that. Everyone just talks to him like, "Hey king, can you do this? Hey king, can you do that?" And also the main character at some point basically tries to assassinate him in one of the trials and no one bats an eye. Like, you would think that at least she would be imprisoned for basically putting the entire realm in danger and trying to assassinate him. And I'm not even talking about the fact that by being reckless, she could just kill an entire realm with the king, but she doesn't think of that. She just wants to look cool in one of the trials. I found a passage. She lifted the fabric from her eyes and couldn't help but smirk as she saw Oro, who is the king of Lightlark, still glued in place, his gaze not on her, but on the crown she hit with her arrow. How was she not imprisoned for this? I don't understand. Now let's get to the actual characters. Every character has the exact same personality. All of them are wicked, ruthless, cannot be trusted. The main character gets to trust them and then they betray her, and then she gets to trust them again and then they betray her again. And this, by the way, what I'm just talking about, the cycle of betrayal and trust happens with at least 4 to 5 different characters. Because they're all the same. And I got tired of that pretty easily. It's exhausting to constantly read about betrayal from this person and betrayal from that person, and then she gets to trust them again only for the other person to reveal something, and then she's like, oh, but they're not actually that bad. And this happens with pretty much everyone around the main character. The main character is incredibly childish and unlikable. I'll find a passage because I need to read this to you, okay? So basically, she visits an island, the one where everyone dies at the age of 25. Like, who is running this country? This country is basically filled with teenage parents. There is no research, right? And it just seems that this entire realm would be behind everybody else because of this reason. And Isla, which is the main character's name, is thinking about that. I'll read you directly from the book. That was what happened when an entire realm died before 25, she supposed. Their government was almost non-existent, run by nobles who were practically still children when they died. A pity, Isla thought, as she walked through Star Isle. Something about the realm dazzled her, every living thing coated in a shining gloss, like someone had dipped their hand inside a star and smeared its silvery glow across the land. So you have a character that is looking at a realm whose people have not even a chance at living, and she goes, a pity. It looks so beautiful and shining though. Like, writing of this character is also a pity. The characters that are supposed to be immortal, so they are, for example, 500 years old, they still act like teenagers. And I believe that if you cannot make your character sound their age, you shouldn't write it. You know, what's the point of having a 500-year-old character if it just acts like a horny teenager? There's a specific passage where Isla goes on a mission with the king, and she cannot wear her crown because she's supposed to be in disguise. And she goes and flicks the king's crown. Do you remember what I told you about the hierarchy? Yeah, and then the king later on comes up to her and he does the same. He flicks her crown so hard that she falls and bends it. Is this a 500-year-old character or a 12-year-old? And I feel like this is insulting to most 12-year-olds out there. The romance in this book is questionable, to say the least. So there is a love triangle of an 18-year-old girl and two immortals who are at least 500 years old. And we are constantly reminded that these immortals have been with many women. They are so experienced, and that our main character has never been touched by anyone. And it's just so creepy to me. I don't know, do people find this attractive in books? If so, y'all need help. And Jesus. And the love triangle, I think it's very hard to execute well, because I think that you need to build a same amount of chemistry with both people in order for it to work. But there is this one character where there's literally zero chemistry at all. And this is again a minor spoiler, but we're somehow supposed to believe that they will be together. It just... I don't know how I feel about this. It's just so icky to me. And to me, as a reader, it made no sense, because there wasn't anything that would make me believe that these two characters are supposed to be in a relationship, that they love each other. Okay, now let's talk about the actual plot. And oh boy. So the plot is incredibly repetitive. Again, spoiler warning, I will not reveal anything major, but the whole plot is just the main character going after a few different relics. And she visits all kinds of places and the relic isn't there. And then when she tries it for 6 times for one relic, she moves on to another relic. And again, she goes to this place and this place. And that, to me, is just so boring. Also, this incredibly dangerous trial that is supposed to happen is not dangerous at all. Every challenge is made by a different ruler. So sometimes you would have challenges where they would, for example, go inside a mirror and face their fears, but there's no danger there. Or it's a challenge where they're supposed to reveal their darkest secret, but then they don't really have to if they don't want to. This was advertised as like fantasy Hunger Games, and that's not what it is. And also, the trial is just in the background of it, because we're constantly focusing on some random ass ancient relics. And we're made to believe that the main character is constantly in danger, but yes, there's stuff that happens to her, but usually it's because of her own stupidity. Like sometimes she just does stuff. She doesn't think before going somewhere, and she's just like, oh, I'm strong. I'm this powerful ruler of a realm. And then she has to be rescued by someone else. Looking back now, I don't think that she even rescued herself once. Like, she always needs someone to come and rescue her, especially a powerful 500-year-old sexy ruler, because they have nothing better to do, I guess, than to constantly save this stupid ass. And a lot of the plot just felt like a filler, and I got bored pretty easily. I want to take a minute to talk about BookTok and the publishing industry, because I am thinking, what the hell happened? Like, where did it go so wrong? So she mentions in the book that she was actually refused by a lot of agents, by a lot of publishers, before her video on TikTok went viral. And I just want to say that I don't really blame TikTok for this, because I actually remember seeing that video like months ago and thinking, oh, this actually would be a good book to read if I wanted to read YA fantasy. And I would say that it was falsely advertised, or more like the book didn't meet the expectation that it set in that video. And yes, TikTok is skewing the publishing industry 100%. I think there are some books out on TikTok that are incredibly overhyped for no reason. And then you have amazing great books that just don't get promoted on the algorithm because there are absolutely creators out there who make videos of these lesser known books, but for some reason the algorithm just doesn't promote them. So I don't want to blame TikTok. I actually want to make a video where I would read a lot of popular TikTok books. I have read most of them years ago because the books originally were popular on YouTube, so that's how I got to read them. I didn't like most of them, but coming back to Lightlark, the book because I read it on Kindle, is underdeveloped. And I think that it could have been so much better if perhaps the author or the editor could have more time to work on it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but to me it seems like the book was written and then it blew up on TikTok and a publisher picked it up, and then it was very quickly edited so that it could be distributed to the masses and it could capitalize on the hype that was created on TikTok. Because there are things that could have been rewritten, that could have been executed much better, in my opinion, if there would be just more time. I've already mentioned that Alex Astor had troubles publishing this book before TikTok, right? And getting published is incredibly hard. Finding like a suitable agent that can pitch these books to the publishers is hard. And also it seems to me that the main houses of the publishing industry just want to publish whatever is trendy these days, and quantity is preferred instead of quality. However, I would say that the book that was written like that, it was not supposed to be published. In my head, if I would constantly receive no, and yes, of course, you can try harder, and yes, it's so difficult, but perhaps it's sometimes okay to take a step back and work on the book for a few years, rewrite it and make it better so that it could be worthy of being traditionally published. This book, as it is now, in my personal opinion, you might have a different opinion, is not worthy to be traditionally published. However, I don't think that at the end of the day it really matters, because Alex Astor became the #1 best-selling author. The book was #1 most bought book on Amazon for like weeks. Clearly, the publisher made their money, the writer made their money, and a lot of people like it. There are also tons of people who completely hate this book, and I understand why. I don't hate it. I was just disappointed by it, but everyone made their coin, and it scares me that this might turn into a standard practice from now on, and social following would be prioritized instead of the actual quality of books. Okay, thank you so much for listening to my rant, I guess, and I'll see you next time. Bye.